Imagine it's the early 2000s. Venezuela is one of the richest countries in Latin America. Oil revenues are massive, public spending is expanding, and the middle class believes the future is secure. From the outside, the system looks stable. Then, slowly, the rules begin to change. At first, it's framed as justice, then as redistribution, then as protection. And eventually, everyday life becomes harder to recognize. Now imagine something else. Imagine the United States today. Different country, different system, different language, but some of the patterns feel familiar. When people think of collapse, they imagine chaos, empty shelves, hyperinflation, political repression. That's the Venezuelan image most people remember. But collapse doesn't begin there. It begins much earlier, when systems quietly stop serving people and start serving themselves. In Venezuela, that shift was political first. In the United States, it has been economic first. Venezuela centralized power openly, control was visible, and decisions were public. The United States took a different route. Control became administrative, financial, contractual. No single leader to blame, no single moment to point to, just a growing web of dependency. In Venezuela, people eventually depended on the state for access to food, currency, employment, basic services. In the US, dependency looks different. People depend on credit, employment stability, healthcare access, debt servicing, asset prices. Miss a payment and consequences follow, not from the government, but from the system. Venezuela collapsed quickly because power was centralized. The economy relied heavily on one resource. Currency controls were direct, and trust broke suddenly. Once confidence disappeared, everything accelerated. The collapse was visible. The US economy is far more complex. It doesn't rely on one commodity, it relies on debt. Debt spreads pressure over time. Instead of shortages, there is stress. Instead of collapse, there is fragility. Life continues, but with less margin for error. In Venezuela, enforcement was political. In the US, enforcement is financial. Interest rates, credit scores, monthly obligations. People don't fear the government. They fear losing healthcare, missing rent, falling behind, losing access. Control doesn't need force when compliance is built into survival. In both countries, people believe the system was permanent. We have too much oil to fail. In the US, this is just how modern economies work. Normalcy becomes a powerful anesthetic. As long as shelves are stocked and screens are bright, warning signs are ignored. In Venezuela, ownership shifted through nationalization. In the US, by consolidation, financialization, institutional investment, and debt based acquisition. Different mechanisms, same result. Decision making moves further away from ordinary people. A system restructured, culture adapts. In Venezuela, professionals emigrated, local businesses collapsed, informal economies expanded. In the US, small businesses disappear. Housing becomes financial instruments. Careers lose long-term stability. The loss is gradual, but cumulative. People don't resist because the system doesn't feel like oppression. It feels like responsibility. Work harder, budget better, plan smarter, until planning no longer works. Both systems lead to the same psychological outcome. Uncertainty becomes permanent, risk feels dangerous, stability feels temporary. But there is no clear enemy, which makes the pressure harder to confront. This isn't about left or right. Venezuela collapsed under one ideology, the US is collapsing under another. The constant is not ideology, it's concentration of power, whether political or economic. The US is not becoming Venezuela, but it doesn't need to. Different systems can produce similar lived experiences. What matters is not the label, it's the structure. In Venezuela, people eventually realize the system no longer served them. In the US, that realization is happening quietly, through rising costs, fragile employment, permanent debt, disappearing margins, not all at once but steadily. Collapse doesn't announce itself, it normalizes itself. By the time it's visible, choices are limited. This channel doesn't exist to predict disaster. It exists to recognize patterns before they become irreversible. Venezuela showed what happens when control becomes obvious. The United States showed what happens when control becomes invisible. Different countries, different systems, similar outcomes. Understanding that doesn't create fear, it creates clarity. If this perspective helped you connect these dots, the other videos on this channel explore how these patterns appear across debt, housing, labor, health, and everyday life in America. With that being said, let me know in the comments, what do you think is going to happen with Venezuela now that the US is there? Do you believe everything is going to be better, or is just going to remain the same? This is the Real American Economy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.